There is an emerging trends changing from ICE to EV car, and this creates a critical point for Volkswagen. So let's explore the journey of Volkswagen with us, with the team Chloros Catalyst. Hello, good afternoon, judges. My name is Pendisha, and today I'm here with Mintra, Tanchanok, and Pink Floyd. Starting with Volkswagen's current position, Volkswagen is the world's second largest car manufacturer, with the first largest is China, and also have many brands in that portfolio such as Audi, Volkswagen, or Porsche. Right now, they face a 15% year-on-year drop in the annual operating profit in 2024, and also 2.3 sales volume fell. What happened with this? There is a rapid adoption of EV in the people preference. Also have a saturated market in EU. Even they have a strong preference in the EU market, a leader in the EU market. And also there is a high competition from BYD and Tesla, which is the two main competitors of the Volkswagen. With the goal to save Volkswagen Group from the demise of European car industry to survive and to return the portfolio back, while sustain the Volkswagen Group in the long term. With this, from the graph, you can see that Volkswagen focused on the wrong trends on the ICE car, which is the blue line, and also for the EV sales, there is a green line. Volkswagen focused on the wrong trends on the ICE car. There is an emerging rapid growth of the world's EV sales, around 55% growth. So Volkswagen should prioritize developing EV car, and this is our main focus. Then there is a three main opportunity gaps that Volkswagen can fill in. The first one is EV in EU market were expensive, so due to the high cost of production and also the batteries. So this region have few EVs available under the 30,000 euro. Also, the second one, Future Mobility report that they predicted private car sales would peak around 2030, suggesting that the share rise and robot taxi would come to the mainstreams. And also the last one, there is no multi-energy platform in the US. And also we have the case study of the Thailand in the China that have produced a multi-energy platform there. With this, we have a strategic location which we have to choose the right place for the Volkswagen, which we have the EU, US, and China. Which from our criteria, market growth, main competitors, barriers for market entries, gaps, and the fit with the preference there of people there. We choose EU and US since we are the leader in the EU, and also in US there is no multi-energy platform there, and also if we be the first mover, there will generate the advantage. And also the US imposed tariff on China EV, so the BYD can come in the US easily. And also our main competitor is only Tesla there. So Volkswagen should still play in the EU market and entry into the US since there is gap for Volkswagen to get the advantage. And next, we have to choose the right player in the Volkswagen group since they have like Porsche, Audi, or Skoda. And from this, we have the seen gap between the Volkswagen and Skoda that have no plug-in hybrid or EV car. And we choose the Volkswagen since Volkswagen can fill the EV gap and also the price range and the brand perception for people. So we choose Volkswagen as our main player. From this, with the key challenge, the first one, high competition with the BYD and Tesla, market trends shift from ICE to EV car, and the strong in Europe but become saturated market. So we set the key question, how can Volkswagen Group survive in the trend shift, saturated car industry in EU and high competition, also increase the return profitability back? With our three solutions, we propose you three solutions. The first one, Volks EV Gulf, which propose the low price EV in the EU market. The second one, Volks share with partner for share right. And the last one, Power Volks, which contribute a multi-energy platform in US, which create the long-term revenue. We anticipate the impact that it will increase 4% in market share in the EU and also have 11 million cars sold in 2030. And next, I will let my teammate Tanchanok to introduce you to the first strategy, Volks EV Gulf.
with the key question that how to stay existing in European market, we introduced this one, Golf EV X Volkswagen, to introduce this new model in EU market to grab window of opportunity of operating low range of model. And why we choose to operate in EU market and why to be Golf model. Since EU have few EV available under this price range and have partnership for doing EV price under Euro 25k Euro, and also strong reputation in brand perception and how it can generate the impacts. So the total market share for Volkswagen will increase for sure, and next will sustain as market leading in European car industry. And next, let's further look at why EU further. With the rising adoption in EU, especially for battery EV, as can be seen from the number increasing year by year, and a strong support in EV policy, such as the goal for reducing emission, and as well as the government subsidies like tariff and also the subsidies, and as well as Volkswagen is a home country production, so tariff will be accepted, and as well as we have production factories in countries such as Germany, Spain, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and France. And the usage of the transportation for EU people and in European market is aligned with the within a range of 300 kilometers in a day. So that's why it's matched with the EV capacity in a day as well. And the next, let's look at why we choose Golf model. As Golf is one of the model of Volkswagen and it's perceived as daily use car like we also in our country, and as well as the price range is affordable for EU people. It costs only around 32k EU, and therefore our solution is offer Golf E in EV model within price range under this price range to be around 73k EU. And overall for this work EV Golf will generate the impacts for the capturing in EV market gap in EU market, and as well as EU consumer will be able to adopt more EU usage, and as well as to stay competitive in EU car industry. And next I will let my colleague Mintra continue with the further strategy.
So next strategy is our Volks chair, which will be about share ride. So the key challenges we face right now is the McKinsey report that the predicted share ride and robotaxi would become mainstream after 2030. So our solution is to partnerships with Uber and implement new multi-share ride, which Uber already had, and we add the function which will name Volks chair, which will be share car ride and given car to Uber for driver to lend our car and give these services in Uber app. And why do we have to execute this? So because Volks will use both fuel car and EV car after we implemented Golf EV to Uber rider, they can rent out our car and drive, and it creates jobs, and also we can get more revenue from lending our car to partnership with Uber. So Volks will gain more brand presence in US market because we aim that this strategy will be in both EU and US. So this will gain more brand presence, put themselves more in US market, and make adoption in the trend that are coming right now. And for Uber, they can increase in rider because they gain more driver and also more user from higher rider, and the price will be lessened because the supply is higher. And also the driver, they will get more job, and they don't have to put their initial cost a lot because they can rent our car to do their services. So Volkswagen will capture the new trend and new market for Volkswagen growth in the future.
And next, let me introduce how the UX UI of the application Uber will look like. As you can see from the current UX UI of the Uber, there will be more options to consumer to choose. For example, normal price, normal ride, green light, and SUV ride, and also multi-drive. But here is our option added for this strategy, work share. We offer into the application with the offer of lower price that consumer can click this option and share the rides together.
So we choose to partnering with Uber in USA and EU to implement this share ride, and to execute this, we will import car from our hub in USA and to lend out for rider which we have the concept of borrow to create a job. So first, Uber, this is the step of the whole process. So Uber can lend their car in for 1 day or even like in a month, and driver can use car for acquire income using both share services type and also borrow car from Uber, and there will be more choices for customers to choose in their services, which will be benefits us as Volkswagen and also for Uber. And next is our last strategy, which will be named PowerWorks, the future factory hub in US region. Because right now we see the challenges that Stellantis reorganize themselves for the whole ecosystem of car manufacturing. So Stellantis place themselves in multi-energy production, which allows themselves to produce hybrid petrol car, EV car on the same production line. So we think that it would be also strategic move for us to do in other regions as same as them, so we could get we could capture the market first. So our solution is to joint venture between PowerCo SE that we have already joint venture, Rivian and Volkswagen to produce the new ecosystem factory line for us as for Volkswagen. And why PowerWorks should invest the new factory hub? We consider that there are many risks from the new capital expenditure, but we see that the trend in passenger car sales as a whole is increasing a lot, and also every type of EV car sale volumes also increasing. So we think that the manufacturer of all types of cars are still increasing. And to be long-term automobile manufacturer seller mode, we have to capture this by being the first mover advantage in US region, because right now there is no factory that produce every types of engine in US region. So this is how we're going to execute, because right now PowerCo have their manufacturing at Ontario, Canada. So we will use that house in order to make the PowerWorks. So PowerCo, they already specialize in producing in developing battery value chain. So they will help us in like producing production in EV car, and Volkswagen we already been market leader in fuel car, so we also specialize in fuel car, and Rivian are specialized in software using cars. So combine us in this, we can build a really strong production house for every type of car. And the impact that it's going to generate is we can be more flexibility production to meet the market preference in the future. We don't have to choose between fuel car or EV car, because we could produce both. And also both Rivian and PowerCo SE can gain specialization and be the market leader in US region, rather than being compete with China market or even EU market that are saturated and have a little growth. And I will hand it my mic to Pin Floyd to talk more about our impacts on these three strategies.
Thank you, Mintra. And here is our implementation timeline. First, for Work EV Go, we will transform the car platform first, and then we will do the market setting and also launching and also the customer relation. After that, for Work Share, we will acquire partner and also import car, launching and also customer relationship. And for PowerWork, we will set up R&D and also infrastructure. Okay, if our strategy are successfully implemented, we believe that we can achieve 4 key impacts. First, the car sale will increase around 476,000 in 2030, and also EV car sale will be almost 1 million car for only EV car in 2030 as well. And market share in EU will increase 4% from 24% to 28%. And we believe that we can reduce reliance on ICE car as well by increasing the portfolio of EV car from 12% to 18%. And here is our financial impact. We believe that our revenue driver came from the sales from Golf EV and also rental fee, which is around 10% of the car price, which we calculate from the depreciation of the car, of the Volkswagen car. And also in 2029 and 2030, we can also gain the revenue from the car production from joint venture, with 50% of car sale will go to the Volkswagen. And here is our cost structure with capital expenditure is mainly consists of the platform setup, partnership, and for operating expenditure it consists of staff costs, marketing costs, maintenance costs, operating and another costs such as the import cost. However, I believe that every good strategy still have some risks behind. So the first risk that we have to consider is European might have slower adoption for EV car. But to mitigate this risk, we could introduce and educate more on the cost saving on the fuel. And for the second risk is the low adoption of work share in Uber platform. So we could, to address this, we could implement marketing or invest heavily in marketing to prove to the market. Now, let my colleague Penvicha summarize executive summary for you.
Thank you, King Floyd. From our three solutions, Walks EV Golf, Walk Shares, and Power Walks, we ensure that we would take care of short-term and long-term gain, and also we have low and high risk too. And we can achieve the key question: how can Volkswagen Group survive in trend shift, saturated car industry in EU, high competition, and also return to profitability? And we would like to end up with the quote: we should call for Volkswagen. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Chloros Catalyst. We'll now proceed with the Q&A session. Judges, you have 15 minutes for Q&A session.
Thank you for that, Team Chloros Catalyst. A few questions. Firstly, if I understood your presentation correctly, you seem to focusing on the European market, obviously, going forward, and that seems to be the driver of your growth on the back of EVs or mid-range cars at the EV price. Are you completely abandoning the Chinese market? Which is there, they've invested 5% in the Chinese company Xinpeng Motors. Is that a platform for some sort of presence in China? And secondly, the point regarding Volkswagen, it does hold on to some very good brands like Porsche. And Porsche equally owns 53% of Volkswagen, I believe. Have you also looked at the more traditional route? And that is to say that there is a good, strong, high-end market for these sort of cars. The traditional gas guzzlers, as they say, is still there, and there's still a huge market, and Porsche is a huge brand. You seem to sort of, I don't know if you've not considered or if you neglected that aspect of this particular business. So what I'm saying is that you seem to have identified a more controlled growth path. I appreciate that, but have you looked at some of these more specific or these aspects of Volkswagen, which are very unique to Volkswagen in terms of driving your more, your controlled growth strategy going forward at a cost-effective level? Hope you understand the question.
Okay, thank you for the question. From our location metrics, decision metrics, we did not go into the China directly because of the BYD, and there is a very market growth. However, there is a market growth that is very high, but however, there is a barrier and market entry that is very high because BYD has the low cost of production and also the low cost of the car. So it's hard for us to get into it directly, and also because of there is a gap for EU and US more than the China.
And for the question that would it be more like another choice, alternative way that are more unique, but could be the new pathway for Volkswagen that we have considered would be, we have think about implementing a truck EV in US market, because right now we know that there is a high tariff between China and USA. That is mean it's mean that EV market in USA we don't have to compete with China, and we see that we already have partnering joint venture partnering with Rivian USA, which also have a software engineer, and they also produce luxury truck EV car by their own. So we think that another ideas that we have considered would be producing EV truck in USA market too. But we have to play more safe, so that's why we choose these three strategies.
Just one more question before I pass it to my colleagues. One of your slides suggesting that your setup cost for all this is $3 million US or 3 million euros. I'd suggest that's highly optimistic, and then there's one slide there. You might mean 3 billion, I think. If you go to the financial slides. Yeah. Thanks. This one. CapEx 3 million. Surely not.
Okay, so I would like to answer your question, and I am agree that for the setup is a little bit positive mindset, but we think that we could transform some part of the current platform to for producing EV.
Yeah, I work in the port industry, and one crane costs 10 million US dollars. I don't think that's right. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just making the point. You have to be realistic with your numbers, not to try to, not do it on the basis of trying to justify your market, your business direction. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you for presentation. And just a few questions. I think one of your focus is on the Golf EV Volkswagen, right? You try to drive the cost down to about 23K euro. Now, how you derive that? How you get that numbers down?
Okay, since we believe in our good relationship partnership with the French producer, so we aim that beyond the price that the partnership as a French producer can offer us, we can like reduce it more, like from our provision and also our capabilities.
And to add on from my friend, so we have we could calculate and estimate this price because we have our we also have done the kind of this project in our university. That's why we could estimate our price. So we estimated from like the manufacturing in EU and also how Volkswagen have their own manufacturing factory and also have also developed it in EV a bit in EU market. That's why we estimate in this price. But we also noticed that it is very optimistic too, and we're so sorry for this mistake.
And living on a bit because the average price of the car in the Volkswagen group is around to 29,000 per each car, and we position this Golf EV not just a premium car, so we estimate around for the new price of Golf EV is around 80% of the average current average car.
And who are your partners, the platform partners or the battery partners?
The partner that we use it will be Power Co. SE. That they have two production houses, one in Germany and also another one in Canada. So the battery that we're going to use and with lower cost will be from Power Co. SE.
How are you going to compete with the Chinese manufacturers actually has a cost advantage?
Since we believe that the China competitor that come to the EU market, when they import the car as BYD cars into EU market, the price of the BYD car per each still cost highly than our introduce of Golf EV. Yeah, and also as the competitor of USA like Tesla. Although Tesla aim to produce and also introduce the low range of the car, it still exceeds this price range that the European consumer can accept and afford for.
And you also plan to penetrate into not only European but also US market, like I understand. And what kind of the strategy you actually could penetrate to the US market since that's the main dominant players in this Tesla. So your position on that.
So the position that we use, we have two strategies that penetrate to US market. So the first one would be Volksshare, that we're going to partner with Uber to provide a new service named Volksshare in the Uber app, which we will lend our car to the rider in Uber app and provide new service with wheelchair riding according to the trend. And I know that this would be do not put that much impact. So we have another strategy which named Power Works, where we're going to be like a production house in US region in order to produce in every line of car automotive So we think that in such as Thailand, when we have like Mercedes or even BMW, they have to they some types such as Myanmar, they have to move their operations here in Thailand or even like put up together in Thailand to have lower price. So we think that if we could produce in every line of the production, we could attract other brands rather than in the US to produce with us and sell in the US. But we also have considered that Tesla is our biggest competitors in terms of manufacturing and also the car key players in car industry. So that's why we use like the whole ecosystem, not only in EV market but also in fuel, in plug-in hybrid and other types of car, not just only in EV.
I have a question on the work share. How can you elaborate further on this plan? How are you planning to afford this strategy? Because you're not actually selling your car, and is your business selling car?
Okay, thank you for your question. Since we have an insight from McKinsey consultant report on the predicted share rides will be booming, and also the robotic taxi would become the mainstream of the next trends in the future. So we have to consider these insights and adopt these trends into the Volkswagen as a new product type to introduce to the world.
I would like to add on a bit because we calculate the rental fee for them around 10%, which we calculate from the depreciation of the car, and this would account around 2,000 cars for Uber, and this is a very conservative rate for them.
So to sum up, we generate revenue from getting a share of the rental cost from that type of service, and also we have to share the revenue of these services, both share in Uber app with our partner Uber. So that's how we generate revenue more than more elaborately.
You're saying that you like to focus on the EU market and also US market, right? Especially for US because of the tariff, which is very high. So it acts like a barrier for BYD not to come into the US market, right? But as you know, if Trump cannot survive in the midterm election in November this year, and tariff has been removed, and now BYD can come into the US to compete with you, what would be your strategy?
Thank you for the question. As our strategy, the second one, the Vogue share, we will introduce the Vogue car before BYD can get in, because we can partnership with the Uber, and it can have a strong presence of our brand into the US market before the BYD is just coming, like huge coming into the US.
And also to add on more, if we have we may have the limited budget to like test demand in US, right? So if in the US market didn't work, or it could be like collapse or anything, depends on Trump, we could like so we have to change the market. It could be like South America in the same zone to not move that much of asset, and also don't lose that much.
Like Stephen mentioned earlier, that you are ignoring China market, which is the largest EV car demand in the world. Is that right?
It is because right now we see that there is a really high competition in China EV car market, and we are a bit late into capturing those market shares. So that's why we are not risking ourselves in getting into the market that are already saturated and in very high competitions. That's why we kind of ignore China, but in another region that we know that we are there still demand exists and we could get that. That's why we didn't choose China.
terms of both shares, why Uber would select you to be partners? What is your strategy? Why don't you go for that local Tesla or whoever that can provide benefits or whatsoever? I just want to hear more.
So we think that our best strategic move that we offer to Uber would be we give them a free car to them, but we just only want revenue from the lending and leasing for another driver and also the fees, right? And I know that Tesla maybe could duplicate or replicate the things that we did, but this thing maybe we aim to like. I think the biggest differentiating things that we offer would be the first mover that we get into that, and also we offer a car for free. That's why we think that it could be a strategic move for us, even though it would be a bit easy to replicate. But we think that if we can acquire more income in using this box share before Tesla could duplicate that, Tesla may not be able to do this in order to protect their own brand recognition or even brand awareness in order to copying us.
About the financial, how about the trajectory in terms of the return on investment, financial implication behind the market share of regular growth?
So the market share in EU.
Thank you, judges and Chloros panelists. The Q&A session is now done.